Our scripture story today could carry us in many different directions. You know, quite frequently the message that I share with you is not completed before I title it. I'm under a deadline to have the bulletin prepared by Thursday afternoon. So sometimes, perhaps most of the time, I have not finished or sometimes started the sermon before I have to come up with a title. And as we know, a lot can happen between Thursday and Sunday.
Yes, sir.
I debated whether or not to insert an ing after the first word of the title. There is a difference between calm in the storm and calming the storm. We find Jesus in this story being one before doing the other. Jesus is calm in the storm. He's asleep, and it's irritating to his disciples. Calm in the storm. Sometimes those people drive you crazy, don't they? It can mean several things. The disciples interpret it as not caring. Why is Jesus not up leading the response to this crisis? Does he not care that they are about to drown? Where's the action to solve the problem? Where's the urgency to make an intervention? Where is the decider-in-chief to bark out the orders? Where's the manager to direct the team? We're dying here, Jesus. And you are doing nothing about it. Why is Jesus sleeping anyway? He's Jesus. He doesn't need sleep, does he? Superman would not have been sleeping in the back of that boat with the waves crashing over the sides. The humanity of Jesus is sometimes hard to accept. Jesus gets tired. Why are they in the boat in the first place? It's Jesus' idea to go to the other side of the lake. He's tired. Even while doing good, we get tired. The crowds have been picking up for him and his disciples more people, more opportunities for ministry. Why leave where they're at? The work is not yet done. Every hurt has not yet been healed. Every tear has not been wiped dry. Every hungry stomach has not yet been fed. Every demonic power has not yet been chased away. Every burden has not yet been lifted. Every contact has not yet been made. Every need has not yet been met. And Jesus says, hey guys, I'm tired.
Amen.
Let's go to the other side of the lake. A tired and sleeping Jesus is not what we will put on our sign to bring more people in. Come to our church and meet our sleeping Savior.
Amen.
I don't think that works. It's not inspiring, is it? Just like we don't like to show up to a place where we want to do business or find help and the door is locked. And the lights are off, and the sign says, closed until Monday. Staff are on a retreat, won't be back for 3 days. Call the number, you get a message. We're not able to take your call right now. The office is closed for the holiday. Or the website says, we will be closed on Sundays so that our employees may attend their places of worship if they choose and have time with their families. We don't like that. It's irritating. We live in a culture that has equated downtime with lost opportunities, lost profits, laziness, or lack of initiative. Can't get ahead, won't beat the competition, won't achieve success while taking a day off, or while on a 2-week vacation, or while sleeping in the back of the boat. And even more inexcusable to us is the idea that while a crisis is unfolding, a leader is sleeping. soon seeming to choose inaction. The storm is raging. The crisis is upon us. Crisis. There is a sense that we are in the midst of a crisis. Wednesday evening's unimaginable events at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston shake us to the core. I went back to look up the definition of a crisis. The word actually has multiple but interrelated meanings. First one is a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. Synonyms are emergency, disaster, catastrophe, calamity. Second definition, a time when a difficult or important decision must be made. Synonyms are critical point, turning point, crossroads, watershed, moment of truth, point of no return, doomsday. And third definition, the turning point of a disease when an important change takes place, indicating either recovery or death. I would say it is obvious, and there is nearly unanimous agreement, that what happened in Charleston Wednesday evening with the murder of 9 people sitting in a church Bible study, that event meets the criteria for a crisis under that first definition, a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger, a catastrophe, a heartbreaking calamity. What seems less obvious and not unanimously agreed upon is the sense of whether or not this event will take the shape of the second definition of that word, crisis. Is this a time when a difficult and important decision or decisions must be made? Is this a critical point, a turning point, a crossroads, a watershed, a moment of truth, a point of no return, or is it a doomsday? Now, events of our past with similar characteristics have caused us to ask these very same questions. Places we once did not know are now household names to us because of the crisis encountered. Crisis under that first definition. We now know of places like Columbine and Virginia Tech and Sandy Hook and Aurora and way too many others because they too were sites of senseless murders and heartbreaking calamity at the hands of one man with a weapon or weapons that can kill lots of people in a short span of time. And every time the response has been the same. Have you noticed? In the days following, there is much discussion about moving beyond that first definition of the word crisis to the second definition. For this time has to be the moment of truth. This must be a turning point, and difficult, important decisions will be made this time, surely this time. We have thought that each time. I felt it most hopefully after Sandy Hook. Elementary school children, first graders, their front teeth missing, rambunctious on the playground, eager to please the teacher. 26 of them, including teacher and principal, gunned down like they were on a battlefield. Now, if that doesn't move us out of our entrenched mindsets to seek a new way, then what in the world, what in the hell will? If that doesn't cause us to say, I'm willing to let go of old alliances and attachments and seek to consider some new thoughts and ideas and form some new bonds, then I'm not sure what will. And now, Emmanuel AME Church. Will this be the time? It remains to be seen. Much of what I have seen and heard in response to this event looks a lot like the responses in those previous times. Folks are heading toward their corners with the idea that we can solve these sort of issues by gearing up for a boxing match. This event raises to the surface long-standing hurts and old wounds not yet healed. And so folks head to the corners. It's hard not to head to the corners when we feel like the foundations have been pulled out from underneath us. In the heat of the crisis, there is within us all a natural desire to go back to the world we thought we knew, back to the familiar and the comfortable, and surround ourselves with all those folks who affirm what we have always held on to and believed. The boat is rocking from the ever-rising waves, and the disciples, no doubt, headed to their old familiar corners. Maybe there were some of them who were saying, we need to paddle to the right. We need to paddle to the right to get through this. And others were saying, no, let's paddle to the left. Let's paddle to the left. The storm can only be avoided by paddling to the left. And so maybe they were divided and they were working each from their own corners against one another, trying to get the boat to go their way, trying to operate out of all of their presuppositions and prejudices. And they were calling out from their corners, you lefty liberals, you're going to make us sink, or you right-wing nuts, you're going to bring us down. And nothing positive was getting done while the boat was sinking to their certain death and destruction. Now, I don't know if that is what was happening on the boat with Jesus that day or not, but my friends, it's exactly what is happening to the boat that we are traveling on.
Right.
Perhaps not since Civil War times in this country have the corners been more well-defined and tightly held. And what corner you head toward seems to define everything, from who you hang with, to what political party you support, to where you go to church, to what cable news channel you watch, to what fast food restaurants you visit. And in times of crisis like this, the corners become rally places for divisive ideologies rather than a center for healthy solutions. So from one corner comes the call for easier access to guns, as if we armed more good people with guns, even in the church, the violence would lessen. From the other corner comes calls for greater restrictions and regulations on guns, asking why, if someone needs training and a license to drive a car or to cut someone else's hair, we don't require a license to purchase and own a killing machine. And from the other corner comes fears that we're calling upon the government to take away our guns. From one corner comes calls for tougher criminal penalties on individuals who carry out these acts of violence, and from the other corner comes calls for more investments in mental health treatment to prevent the violence in the first place. From one corner comes blame laid upon a morally permissive society, and from the other corner comes blame laid upon a prejudicial society. From one corner comes calls for return to traditional values, and from the other corner comes calls for a new openness that makes all people feel embraced and accepted. And labels get slapped upon the corners: conservative and liberal, pro and anti, traditional and contemporary. Folks dig into their corners to the point that we cannot talk with one another and listen to each other's concerns and ideas and seek a common way forward. And the consequence of the gridlock is that even problems as profoundly disturbing to us all as innocent children dying at their school desks, and church people dying at the Bible study table on a Wednesday evening, even problems as profoundly disturbing as that are not being addressed. And we are dying in our corners. All that is happening in the corners is a lot of shouting at one another and labeling and blaming, and nothing gets done or changes. The flame of passion burns intensely for a brief time in the corners, but when the news cycle picks up another story, the desire for action quickly dies out in the corner. When the disciples await Jesus in the throes of the storm, he simply gets up and calmly commands the wind and the waves to cease their fury. Calm in the storm, he calms the storm. He turns to them and questions their faith. There is in his question the implication that they had within their reach the power to deal with this storm and change their situation, but maybe all of their energy was being wasted in fear and anger. They were stuck in all the same old corners to which they'd always traveled when the crisis hit. Jesus offers a better way. Maybe the call to us, all of us this day, is to take a step of faith out of our corners to find a new way forward. A more united way forward. A let's work together, not against each other way forward. I don't know if our politicians can do that right now or not. But even if they cannot, we must.
Amen.
We must. What does it look like to step out of the corner? If you have watched any of the news coverage over these last days, there have been some unexpected and shining examples. Doug Brannon is a state representative from Spartanburg, a white man, a Republican. He stepped out of his corner to say he was introducing legislation to bring the Confederate flag down from the State House grounds to place it in a museum because that is what his friend, Reverend and Senator Clemente Pinckney, a black man and a Democrat, had worked for. A symbol of heritage for some, it is a symbol of hate to others. Representative Brannon said, I want to do this not because of politics. I want to do this for my friend. If the lingering hurt of racism can be healed in any measure with this action, it is what needs to be done. Russell Moore, president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, a church body born in 1845 out of a desire to defend slavery as being consistent with Christian faith. Reverend Moore, like Representative Brannon, has also called for the removal of the flag, stepping out of his corner. Perhaps no one has more courageously stepped out of their corners in the midst of this storm and demonstrated faith so incredibly moving. No one has done that more than the family members of the victims. We heard from them on Friday words of forgiveness to the perpetrator and the bold declaration that hate will not win.
Amen.
Hate